everybody, welcome to the gym. This is Rahul, and with me is top 8 regionals finisher Michael Slutsky, who finished, I guess, top 8 at Arizona Regionals. Hey Mike, how are you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so for everyone watching, but you introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about who you are.
Um, I'm Michael Slutsky. I'm a player from Minnesota. I've been playing since like 2009, I think. I qualified for Worlds in 2015 and almost qualified in 2013. And yeah, I've just been kind of playing competitively since. And I top eighted Arizona just last weekend.
Awesome, awesome. And you top 8 with Raikou Eels, but you had a very spicy tech. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So the Gallade tech kind of came about. I like didn't really play at all or like seriously at all last year because I hated Battle Compressor and the format was really stale. And so this year I like wanted to go for the invite because I knew the cash prizes were big. And so I tried to find a deck that I liked. And so I knew that Eels was really cool. And it reminded me of like an actual Pokemon deck. And so I remember looking at the original list, and the original list had two Battle Compressor in it. And so I kind of was thinking like, well, if you play against Dark, they're going to just attack with Darkrai. And so if they do that, why don't you just put in Gallade? Because you're already running Battle Compressor. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be very difficult to get out Gallade. So I put it in. I originally had like two Gallade, two Maxi, and as testing went on, I kind of slimmed it down. And the 1-1 Gallade, I mean, it was like I would not have day two'd without Gallade. Like it was absolutely the MVP. It's like Gallade. I didn't know how good Gallade was until this tournament, and it's absolutely bonkers how powerful that card is.
Solid. All right, so I guess we'll get right into it. Arizona Regionals, talk about the tournament itself, talk about your experience as a whole, the tournament. Go.
Um, yeah, so I got in like Friday, and we stayed at the Super 8. And then, so we were told to be there at like 8 in the morning, just like everybody. So we woke up really early and got there, and I met up with like Enrique and the Wisconsin crew. We were just kind of waiting in line, and we were waiting in line, and like we were just waiting there for like a really long time, well past 8. And then we like finally got in, and it was just like this huge mob rush. And then we finally got into the building with our printed out confirmation like slips, which is like dumb and archaic. And then the whole like $5 print out a piece of paper thing was just like extortion. Um, but then finally we like got to register. And then luckily we didn't have to deck check. I figure like it was already bad enough. They probably had a deck check, but so then we were able to just sit down. So I was just like playing SP or something with some people, and we were just chilling. And then 9 o'clock came, and we were like, okay, round's probably gonna start soon. And then, it was like 10 o'clock, and we were still waiting. And then it was like 11 o'clock, and we were still waiting. And then it was like they were like, okay, the roster is going up, and it was like, this is kind of dumb. Like the tournament is already 2 hours behind. You could just like put up the round one pairings and then do the player meeting at round one. Because otherwise everybody has to go find a seat, sit down, then get up,
Mm-hmm.
find another seat, sit down. And it's just like I think they should do that in general anyway. I think player meetings are like dumb and archaic. But
It's fair.
yeah, and then they didn't even have round one pairings up yet. So it was like, a huge. It was like almost 500 masters crowded against the wall. But then finally the tournament started running, and I feel like for most of the tournament it was running pretty smooth. At least nothing that I really noticed. And then of course the lights went out. Um,
It's pretty funny.
and I guess the lights went out because like, they were on a timer, and it's like, well, you started 2 hours late, so the timer was up. And then like right when the lights went out, the one of the ladies like working behind the desk was like, everybody put your hands up. So like, that for the memes, I guess, like everybody's hands shot up. And then actually, like while that happened, while the lights went out, is when my opponent and I decided to ID that round. We were in game three. But yeah, and then so that was round 8, and that was at like 11:30 at night, and the round wasn't even done. And then it was round 9, and so like I remember, because like Enrique and I wanted to go to In and Out, which was like a 15-minute Uber away, and it was like 12:30 when the standings went out. And it was like, okay, well, In and Out's open until 1:30, but we're like exhausted. So, we finally got out of there like well over 12 hours after the tournament started. And Then I like had the pleasure of eating Pizza Hut and going to sleep, and then I couldn't really sleep, so I had to wake up. And I played on like 3 hours of sleep the next day. And so on Sunday, we got there, and there were less than 50 players total. So like top eight juniors, top eight seniors, and 32 masters. So 48 of us, and we still waited. Like there was still a delay. And it was like there are almost as many like staff and judges here as there are players. Like why can't we play? But then finally we were able to sit down and play, and then day two was like, because there were less than 50 players, much better, obviously. But it was so bad. It was like mismanaged and just like, and then the league challenge on Sunday, I guess, Lambolt was telling me like you paid $5 to enter and there were no prizes. So like why did you pay to, I don't know. It was so bad. It was just a bad tournament.
Okay, well, like I guess that sums it up pretty much. Yeah, I've been reading a lot of grievances on Facebook, and I didn't have the misfortune of being there, I guess, but I've heard some horror stories from you and others. So I guess we'll hop right into your day one. Talk to us about day one, what your final record was, and I guess your toughest and most like interesting matchups.
Yeah, so I finished 6-1-2 day one. I was 2-0, then I lost to Night March, and then I was 6-1, and then I ID'd my last two. The first ID was kind of an accident, and then the second ID was with Will Herman, and that was intentional. The the first ID was I talked about during the lights went out. I won game one, lost game two, and I was losing game three. So I was like, it was kind of like Saved by the Bell. The lights went on, and we were like, oh, let's ID. And then we decided to play out the rest of the game, and then I ended up like killing a shaman and killing a shaman and winning. So it was kind of like whatever. But um, I would say my toughest matchup, my most memorable matchup, obviously, I played against a Groudon, Nathan Beck. Before that round, I asked, like, I think Enrique or Eric Gansman, who he was. And they were like, I know who he is. He's very good. And I was like, okay. And they were like, I think he's playing dark. And I was like, oh, sweet. Because I'd played four darks that day. And
Nice.
I 2-0'd every one of them. And, so I was like, okay, sweet. And so he flips over Wobbuffet. And I was like, okay, very strange. Must be Vespiquen. And then I think he like Karina'd for a Groudon, and I was like, oh my god. And so like Groudon is like as close to an auto loss as you can get. Like it's so bad. And and so game one, like on the first turn of the game, he dropped Beach, dropped Mr. Mime, escape roped into the Mr. Mime, used Cassius on the Mr. Mime, and then beached. And I was like, wow, that bad. And then I like, I had to end him. And I guess his hand was just like straight garbage. So and then I got the Gallade out that game, and he was not expecting that, which was a very common trend throughout the weekend. Like nobody expected the Gallade, which is again I thought very strange because like it doesn't seem that like crazy of an inclusion once you think about it.
Hmm.
But yeah, so the Gallade was really good. I like because I hit him with I think a Mewtwo or a Raikou, and he thought he was actually exactly 110 away. I don't remember. I must have hit him with a Raikou, and he had a hard charm because he didn't run Sash, he ran Charm, and he was exactly 110 away, and I had really no way of killing it. But then I got the Gallade out, and I think he scooped pretty much immediately because he realized like I was going to kill the Groudon, and then he had nothing. And then game two, it was kind of like the opposite. He like did the Groudon thing and absolutely like ran me over. And then game three was like, I mean, I get goosebumps even thinking about it, and I can't really like explain how epic it was because it's just like one of those things where you have to play it. But yeah, it was like he started double Groudon, and I started Mewtwo, and I tried to lead with Mewtwo every game because I knew that like the only shot I would have is if I would like end him low and like hope he rips healing cards. Um, and we were really going back and forth. Like I hit him with Mewtwo, he knocked it out. I hit a Wobbuffet, or I like hit a Wobbuffet for 10, and then I ended up killing it with a or a Thunderwave Dynamo, and then like I hit his Groudon with Mewtwo, and he killed me back, and then it was like Raikou and Gallade and all that stuff, and we were like, I think he killed Gallade, and then I just maxied it back the next turn, and like um I remember there was a point where his baby Groudon on the bench had a float stone, and I had hit it for 100, I think. And or no, it was clean, and I forced him to hard retreat his primal. And so then I hit the baby one, and he was using like Rip Claw. Is that the name of the
I
first
think
attack?
so. I believe so.
I think Rip Claw, yeah. So he was like using Rip Claw to like kill my Raikous, and he ran Gold Potion and puzzles.
Whew.
So in game two, I think it was, is when I discovered he ran Gold Potion, because at one point in the game, he had like a Groudon up with some damage, and he Karina'd, and I was like, okay, he's probably gotten Comp Search to like get set up or something, maybe grab a Stadium, and because I was like, he's probably not going to scramble switch because he doesn't really have anything to scramble into, and he grabbed the Gold Potion, and I was like, oh wow. So I had to reread Gold Potion because I forgot it existed,
Yeah.
and I thought it only healed 60, and it heals 90, which is like filthy. Um, but yeah, and so like he used Gold Potion once game three, but he could never hit his puzzles. And so I kill the baby Groudon, I think with Gallade, and he puts up a Wob because he has to keep attack. He has to power up the Groudon again, and and so luckily I was able to. I think I like end us both low. He was at two prizes,
Hmm.
and before I did that, I like super rotted in Mewtwo, and I got it back, and I just started like dynamotoring to it. And at one point, the Mewtwo had like six energy and a Fury Belt, and I was just like waiting, like the legend of big energy Mewtwo, and like um, and I was able to like NF low, and then I hit like a Zerosic, so I just like Zerosic his Groudon for like no effect, but I needed it to like get Sensitive Blades extra damage.
Hmm.
So I killed his Wob, and then he put up the next Wob, and then I like played a Hex again just to like dud a supporter and kill him. And then yeah, he sent up the Groudon, and I think I hit him again. He had like six on him, I think, six damage. And he had four energy, and I had six energy. I think I was 10 short. So I just hit him with Gallade, and then he like sycamored, and I think he needed to hit all four of his puzzles, I think is what it was, to like Gold Potion, then Gold Potion, but he whiffed it. So he just conceded to me. And I was like, when that happened, I was like just shocked. Like I was like freaking out because it was like the most like incredible game I'd ever played. And like it's one of those games where like you have to play it like perfectly, you know?
Hmm.
And so like because if you just like misplay, you're just gonna lose because it's so bad of a matchup. So like, I don't want to sound like cocky or anything like that, but like, I just like I really felt like I could go far in the tournament because I was playing really well and Eels was like I was drawing well as a result and like I don't know, it was just like it was amazing. And no other match I had, maybe my top eight match against Will was as epic, but yeah, it was nuts. So
Hmm.
and he was a really cool guy and we ended up like hanging out the next day and stuff, so it was cool. But the rest of my matchups were really just like two O's because I played four darks or yeah, just like IDs or very boring matches. And then day two, I 2-0'd Chris Collins playing Toad Bats very easily. I beat Ryan Grant playing Excelgor Wobbuffet. Um, we had like an unfortunate judge ruling there. On the last turn of the game, I hit his Excelgor for 80 because I thought it was a knockout. And we were both like, good game. And we like shake hands and stuff. And we like packed up our cards. And as we were like shuffling, he was like, you only did 80 damage. And Excelgor has 90. And we were like, oh. So we called the judge. And the judge was basically like, it's the assumed result of the game. You can't, we can't like rewind it.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of shitty because like he's a friend of mine, but I guess it
Yeah.
is what it is.
The moment you pick up your cards, you can't do anything about that.
Yeah. And then I played against Keon Amini. I don't know how you say his last
Yep.
name. And I knew I've heard his name a bunch, and I know he's really good. And
Hmm.
he was playing March. And game one, he played it kind of sloppy, so I was able to just like to win that game pretty commandingly. And then game two, he played it much better. But Raikou with a Fury Belt and an energy attached is actually like really bulky for
Yeah.
like a 90X. So he was forced to discard a lot of Marchers, obviously. And then as the game went on and I kept killing the Marchers, I realized like he only had like two Marchers left, and he started to realize it too. and like I was able to, unlike the penultimate turn of the game, I had a shaman down, and he had three prizes. No, he had two prizes left. And on that turn of the game, I was finally able to maxi out the Gallade. I double dynamoted Shaman, put up the Shaman, super rotted in my Mewtwo, and Sky Returned. So I would have no EXs for him to like target whistle, even though he didn't have any more puzzles or anything. And it was like really sweet. And I killed the Joltik, and then he had just Pumpkaboo and Mew, and I knew that I had a powered Raikou and a Gallade. And he was like, if you got it, you got it. And then I like revealed a double or something. Or no, I had a double to kill him with Gallade, and he scooped immediately. So that was really sweet. And then I was able to ID twice. It was actually funny in the first game in that matchup. At one point, I took Maxi off my first prize, so my hand was Maxi and four trainers, and then he gets this to me. And Gallade was in my discard, so he gets us cool, and he looked at my hand again, and he was like, "Oh no, Gallade's in your discard pile." So he actually kind of freaked out. So he played parallel down on me, so I couldn't bench anything, and I ended up popping the Raikou, which was unfortunate. But then I like got Sycamore the next turn or something, and got right back into it. But that was kind of funny. Yeah, and then my top eight. I mean, I think everybody saw it. I got absolutely bodied in 10 minutes. So.
Yeah. If those of you who haven't seen it, it's on Mr. and 123 stream. Michael played against William Herman, who we also interviewed playing Trevenant, and unfortunately for Michael, he just kind of drew bad.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I mean, the fact that he started, I think his opening turn was game one was like start Wobbuffet, attach Floatstone,
Retreat.
Ultra Ball for Phantom, Wally,
I was like
pass.
Ultra Ball for thing Jirachi for Wally, and it was like something like that.
Yeah, maybe. And then on his next turn, he either played Comp Search or discarded Comp Search with Sycamore. And I was like, oh, wow, nice. And he was like, yeah, I had the Comp Search in my opening hand too. So I was like, okay, that seems pretty good, I
Yeah,
guess.
he drew pretty good, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, even the casters were talking. The casters were talking like the game was over for you from the beginning, and I'm like, nah, if you got the Gallade out, it would have been a completely different game.
Yeah, Gallade would have been really good there. I think I prized it or I couldn't search my deck game one, so I don't know.
Game two,
But
you
game
got
two,
prize.
I
Yeah.
prized. But Gallade would have been really good there because Gallade can kill two Trevenants before he can attack. So even though like bombs and stuff could have been bad for me, it like would have given me time to like try and build some sort of field. But yeah, it was miserable.
Yeah. Well, that was pretty much your entire report. Now, going into your list, would you? Well, I'll show the list at the end of the video, guys. By the way, so if you guys have, and he also posted it in Burbank City Gym for anyone wondering. And I'm assuming you have an article coming out soon.
Yeah, it's like a more in-depth report, and it should be done here. Hopefully, I can actually finish it after this. So it should be up in the next few days.
Okay. So looking at your list, are there any like specific cards that you wish you had, you wish you had changed, anything like that?
Um, Honestly, really no. I felt like I had like the perfect 60. The Xerosic was a morning of inclusion. I was originally toying with Magnezone EX for a while. Because Magnezone, the idea was you would Fury Belt the Magnezone, pull up a Shaman against Night March, and you'd kill the Shaman, and then you'd kill like a Joltik or a Mew or something. But some of the Wisconsin guys tested it, and they said that it never really worked out that way because like Hex or just whatever. And that morning, Enrique was telling me that like Life View was standard in Night March. So I was like, okay, well I don't have an answer to that. So I put in the Xerosic. Xerosic was actually pretty good throughout the weekend. Xerosic is just like such a good supporter all the time. And yeah, I don't really think I would change anything at all, honestly.
Going into say, for example, Philadelphia regionals with Karen being legal, how would you change the list for that for anyone watching?
That's a tough one. I actually was thinking about that. And like, first off, I'll give us a side story before I answer this question. The morning of, like right after the player meeting ended, but before the round started, I discovered that they were all playing Greninja. And I was actually like a little bummed about that, like because I love Greninja and like at Nats last year I like did pretty well with it, and then I kind of like made the list that they took to like that they based their worlds list off of, and then I also helped them a lot with the worlds list. And so like I was like, and then they were like, we didn't tell you because we thought you would shoot it down. And I was like, are you kidding? Like I love Greninja. So it was kind of like a running joke throughout the weekend. And I wasn't like too upset about it, but I was a little bummed that they didn't at least like let me in on it. Um, and then obviously Greninja winning was like shocking. And Greninja is like an auto loss for Eels. Like I'm almost positive that Eels just cannot beat it because like bombs gets through Shining Lance, and then they can just giant water shuriken and kill a Raikou, and like shadow stitching, and like you need 6 energy to kill a Greninja for one price. It's like awful. It's like an auto loss. So actually, I think the release of Karen, like it gets rid of Night March, which can be a dicey matchup. But I think it'll open the door for like other decks, like maybe even fighting, like Zygarde or something. I don't really know, but I don't actually know if Eels is like gonna be good. I played Eels because I thought there was gonna be a lot of Dark and like Trevenant and Toad, like the standard stuff from last year's
Yeah.
expanded. And it's very clear that this expanded format, and especially going forward with Karen, is going to be like very different.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to Philadelphia, but I don't know if I would even play Eels without knowing what the format is like. I would wait for it to develop a little, and if Dark kind of like gets back on top of the hill, then maybe I would consider Eels. But as it stands, I actually probably just wouldn't even play it. I don't think it's that good.
Hmm. All right. So, any thoughts about like some of the crazier decks that made day two this weekend? Rainbow Road, Mega Diancie.
Yeah, so I was actually like I was genuinely very surprised. It seemed like there were a lot of like real decks of Pokemon. There was like a lot of Vileplume on the first day. One of my friends told me he beat an Yveltal Toad Garbodor, which is like straight out of like 2 years ago. Like, you
2014.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. And like, yeah, there was that Mega Diancie, which was pretty wild. Props to him for dodging Night March and making it today too. Yeah, there was like Rainbow Road. There was Ninja, which was a big surprise. There was a lot of really diverse decks. So I guess people just decided to like maybe it was because of like the Sammy box deck that people kind of started moving away from Compressor, or maybe it was like people just decided that they wanted to enjoy playing Pokemon or something. I'm not really sure, but I thought it was really really cool to see a lot of and then obviously I saw like one or two other Eels alongside myself. So I thought the format was actually like very open and surprisingly pretty cool. Yeah, and then Greninja winning, obviously, like I love Greninja, so it was cool to see it win, but definitely like a big surprise.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think anyone would have called it. I think if anyone would look back, even like 1 or 2 days before Arizona, I think Night March and Evital were like the two favorites going in,
Right? Yeah,
and
yeah,
Trevenant being like a close third, I guess.
yeah. I thought it was just going to be the standard stuff. When I was building it, when I was building Eels, I was like, okay, Groudon is like an auto loss, and I was like, Rainbow Road is probably like pretty bad because they can one shot your Raikou pretty easily, and they're also a non-EX, so it makes trading very like bad. Um, But yeah, and then I thought it was just going to be like Toad Bats or Toad Tina, and then Trev and Dark and Night March, and it was like there was that there, but yeah, there was a ton of other cool stuff. I played and saw a lot of Sammy bots too.
Hmm. That grows in popularity very quickly. I think people are just not utilizing Ninja Boy. There's probably some broken combo still waiting.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. I think now that I think Arizona will show people that like you can play like other Pokemon decks. You don't have to play Compressor, and I think we'll start to see a lot of really cool Ninja Boy stuff.
Yeah. So thank you for being here, Eric. Michael? Do you have any like final shout outs? Anything you want to say before we close it out?
Um, hmm. I mean, I guess I want to give a shout out to the Wisconsin guys for not telling me they were playing Greninja. And then I ended up doing better than like all of them except for Caleb, who didn't even like, he just like picked up the deck and built it the morning of and played it. Also shout out to Gansman for making top four. I don't really know like what happened with Eric Gansman because like he like wasn't good, and then like I love Gansman, but he like wasn't good, and then he just like left, and then he came back, and now he's like a monster. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. And then also props to Will Herman for taking second, even though he obliterated me in top eight. It was cool to see him do really well. Um, yeah, that's about it. That's all I can think of.
All right, thank you for being here, and for everyone watching, the list will be up right after this part, so stay tuned.
Cool. Thanks. Bye.
Hey guys, this is Rahul. Welcome to the gym. This is Michael Slutsky's top 8 regionals Arizona list. Raikou Eels, that looks pretty standard and normal, right? Wrong. There's a 1-1 Maxie's Gallade line in it. And if you guys just came for the list, well, here's the list. Enjoy it. Michael Slutsky did post it to Facebook, Verbank. You can catch him. He's writing an article coming up soon. Other than that, this is pretty much a very standard list. He lost to Trevenant in top 8. Unfortunate. What can you do about it? Other than that, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed the interview with Michael Slutsky, show him some support. Like the video down below. Please be sure to subscribe so we can put out more awesome content for you. And thank you for supporting us. And we'll see you in Orlando Regionals coming up. Thank you guys so much.